Hi, everyone. This is Jillian from Jewish Workshops. It is a pleasure to be joining all of you today, and we are extremely privileged to have Chana Radcliffe on the line. Before we get started, I'd love to see who's joining us and where you're from. So if this is your first time on a webinar with us, you should be able to find your GoToWebinar control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and there is a chat box that you can put in your name and where you're joining us from, and then I will be able to welcome you. You can also come back here. I'm sorry, it might be called a question box or a chat box. You can also come back here throughout the webinar and put your questions in. We will get to as many as possible live on the line later. And I do want to give a huge shout out to all of our Family Circle members. We've got some on the line here as well. Feel free to put a little star next to your name and I can give you a special welcome. Welcome Anna from San Diego and Chana from London. Welcome Sari. Welcome Julie from Vegas and Georgina from the UK, Nachami from Chicago, welcome Rena, welcome Bleemy, welcome Jessica from Connecticut, welcome Rena from Indiana, Elaine from New York City, Karen from Toronto, with a little star. So welcome, wonderful to see again our Family Circle members here on the line. Welcome Debbie from Israel. People are continuing to flood in and we have so much to go over today. So I don't want to stay here all day welcoming, but Elisheva from Jackson, welcome. Judy from New York, and everyone else who is continuing to come on the line, welcome, welcome to all. This is really incredible to see people from all over the world coming. I do want to remind you, please don't leave in the middle. It's likely that you can be locked out, and we certainly don't want you to miss even a minute of what we're going to talk about today. Over the past 6 years, Chana has brought her expertise in parenting and relationships to our Jewish Workshops community. And today, Chana is going to introduce a brand new, highly requested topic that prompted over 1,000 people to sign up for today's introductory class. We're going to begin an in-depth exploration of our marriages and find out why it is so challenging to get on the same page as our spouse, and most importantly, how to get back on that page easily and peacefully. So again, make sure to stay on the line until the end to hear about this one-time chance to join Chana week after week for a full live online program at a special discounted rate just for attending today. Plus, as I mentioned earlier, we will answer as many questions live on the line, and it is so important that you get the answers to your questions, which is what makes live and interactive classes so different, than just watching afterwards. So we appreciate that you came and spent your time with us today, and we're happy to get to as many of those questions as possible. It is truly an honor to be hosting Chana Radcliffe today. A registered member of the College of Psychologists of Ontario, Chana Radcliffe has been practicing marriage, parenting, and individual counseling for over 40 years. Chana is a well-sought-after lecturer on stress management, parenting, anger management, and emotional well-being. She is the author of Raise Your Kids Without Raising Your Voice, The Fear Fix, Make Yourself at Home, and 5 other books on family life and emotional well-being. Chana, we are so grateful that you're joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and pass the microphone over to you. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. I have a technical question because I just tried getting rid of our screen here, which got rid of all my notes as well. So that you have, I'm sorry, I should have tested this out beforehand, but don't leave me here. I'm just going to try and click on minimize and see what happens. Let's see what okay, we're good. I survived that one. Okay, although I don't see anything now, but we'll just go with that. All right, so what we're talking about today is getting on the very same page. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. As our partner, and the reason we want to do that is because it gives us the best feeling ever. It is why we got married to begin with. If you recall, you have conversations with people that you're dating, and it goes like, I like reading. Really, I like reading too. I love cooking. That's amazing. I also love cooking. I think that children should be, raised in such and such a way. That's awesome. I also believe exactly that, And then you go like, okay, let's get married, because that good feeling of being on the same page is it's very close to love. I guess we have a desire for self-love in a way. We look at our partner and we see ourselves reflected back, and it makes us feel whole and understood and received and healthy. So we'll just sum that up as saying, there's nothing better. There's no better feeling than being on the same page as another human being. So good that we want to sign up for life with that feeling. Now, it's also why after we go out on a date with somebody that we may never want to see them again. It's just, we disagreed about everything. We had nothing in common. We don't like the same things. We don't think the same way. We don't feel the same way about the important things in life, and so I don't want to go out on a second date. From what I've gleaned, there's nothing there. So we're not attracted to that. We don't want to live with it. We don't want to deal with it. It's kind of ironical how the person we had the most in common with that made us want to marry them ends up being somebody that we end up not being on the same page with. It's kind of ironical. But anyways, the feeling we get from not being on the same page as people is one of being misunderstood, not understood, alienated, alone, uncomfortable, undervalued maybe, disrespected possibly. And this feeling, which is the basis of the whole thing we're talking about today and the whole course that we're going to do next, this uncomfortable feeling prompts us to fix it somehow, either get away from it if we don't have to put up with it, or pursue another venue where we can get it. It's why we choose to live in neighborhoods even with like-minded people who are on the same page as us. It's why we want to work together with people who are on the same page with us in our workplace, or worship with people who are on the same page with us. It's such an important feeling. So I'm going to ask you here, because you signed up to get married to somebody most likely because you felt you were on the same page. Would you please put in the chat box what you discovered later? What differences did you discover that you hadn't foreseen when you said, yes, me too, yes, me too, yes, yes? What did you come across? And I think Jillian will read it out for us to see what are some of the discoveries we all end up making. Once the chuppah is over, we got married, we're now living together, and maybe slowly over time, you have discovered certain ways in which you're not on the same page. Would you please just write some of that in the chat box? What did you find?
That we didn't have enough conversations about the real important things.
Oh, the dating was fun. We didn't even examine the same page maybe. Okay, yeah.
The actual children weren't there yet. So the conversations previously
we didn't even
theoretical.
know what we were about to disagree with. Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely parenting styles, ways of expressing emotions. I'm more of a quick thinker, and he is more thought out and pensive. He grew up in a different culture and is used to telling kids off very harshly.
That's a common one, actually. The different culture and the different style, different parenting style, especially, something we're going to talk about more, but okay, remind me to come back to that.
Okay. Different scenarios in real life.
Yeah, it's all theoretical till we start hitting the dust. Yeah, like just moving forward in the kitchen, like in life. Yeah.
Super competitive. My husband is very permissive. And it looks like some people are still trying to write in, but I think we can move forward. Okay,
all right. Well, these are just little samplings because I know from my many years of marriage counseling just how many differences there are. So we will eventually be getting around to all of them. But that was a nice little sampling. And the one about different culture and different parenting style often comes up just because men and women tend to be different. Okay, so even in the same culture and from similar family backgrounds, we could have differences in the way we approach the minutiae of daily life, and specifically, very importantly, everything to do with parenting. So, so there's the gender differences, the biological differences, the individual personality differences. Even if you grew up next door to each other in families that were very similar, no family is identical. Nobody is the same. Okay, so because of that, you won't recognize while you're dating all the possible variations that can come up because, as many of you said, real life hasn't hit yet. You're talking theoretically, but you're not in the moment, washing that dish, let's say, or disciplining that child. So it becomes obvious what the differences are only after you live intimately with your partner. And, even if you live, fairly intimately, let's say with the roommates, when you're in a dormitory situation somewhere, where you're sharing apartments, you're sharing space, and, you figure, okay, let's say it's at school. So you're living with somebody who has the same school philosophy. They're in the same school as you. They pick that, and you pick that, and they're probably the same age as you, and they probably have the same broad values as you because they're a roommate in the dormitory of the school you're going to. So it's not like a random person. Might even have been good friends before, or anyways, even if it was a stranger, you have a lot in common with, let's say, roommates in a dormitory situation. And yet you will find, once you're living together, that there's somebody who's an early bird, somebody who gets up late, somebody who goes to bed early, and somebody who goes to bed very late, somebody who likes a lot of noise, somebody who likes a lot of quiet, somebody who likes to store dishes in the sink, let them pile up very high, and somebody who needs them washed, dried, cleaned, and put them in the cupboard in the right order. So there's somebody who eats on the couch and drops crumbs, and cleans those up once a week or never, and somebody who can't stand the sight of anything on the floor or the couch or the table or the whatever. You'll discover all that when you're living with them. So when your roommate is your spouse, and you're embarking on the great journey of life. You have many things that you're doing, projects you're undertaking together, financial things, designing your space, making decisions about everything, your schedules, your rhythms, everything to do with how the children are being raised, how the extended family is being approached, everything about everything. You're going to see what the differences are after you've already signed on the dotted line for life. So, we're going to want to try to capture that on the same page feeling as much as possible, even as we discover all the areas in which we're not on the same page. Okay, that discovery process takes place, quite intensely in the first few years of marriage, and often, there's a struggle around these issues. So, just to name some of the common ones again, there's housekeeping issues, just for example, where, when, what you can eat, or how, financial issues, what to spend on and when not to spend. And these things affect both you, your spouse, and the children, right? So if you, let's say with the eating thing that I just mentioned, it could be that, eating schedules and types of food become an issue in parenting. Financial issues could be things like going to camp, buying treats, gifts, clothes, these things, privileges, toys, devices, all these things, where to spend the money on the children. That can become a parenting issue. So even if you don't have children, these things will be issues, but we can see how they become parenting issues as well. Specific parenting issues, once you do have children, like how they should be put to bed, how they should be disciplined, which values you want to instill in them, which ones, you don't want to instill in them, what your goals are, how important is the homework to you, to your spouse, who should do what about interacting with and spending time with and raising those children. We're going to, look at that in depth in the coming weeks, but there's just a lot of places where you can fall off the same page. Marriage values, which will impact parenting as well, but how much time the two of you should be spending together, what you should do, how decisions are made, how you will negotiate conflict, how you interact with the world outside your home, how many children you want. A lot of things which will affect your family life in great detail. Health issues, how you work through a cold, how you keep yourself safe, healthy, how you treat illness. Is it the naturopath? Is it the vitamin closet? Is it the best doctor in town? I mean, I don't know if people even ask that question when they're dating, but believe me, once it comes up. Now that I've mentioned these, Jillian, I'm just wondering if you want to go back and see if anybody wants to add some of the, because maybe I've missed something here. If anybody wants to add just other kinds of differences, I want us to see just more clearly how we fall off that page. Where are some things, now that I've kind of talked about broad categories, that you were surprised by, let's say, by your partner, that you two did not think alike? Let's just take another look.
Sure. He's involved in work and never home for the family.
That's a good one. I have to take notes on that. 1 second. Yes. Okay. That's how we manage our time. Yep.
In theory, our values align, but when it comes to practical manifestations, it looks very different.
Yes. It sounds good on paper. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My husband is very close with his mother, who is very emotionally dependent on him.
And that comes in your values about where you spend time, with whom you spend time with, and so on. Yeah, that's a good one.
How often we visit our parents.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Goals change at different stages in life. My kids are independent. I want to travel and see the world. He's happy just to stay home.
Yes, this is, exactly. Or he wants to travel the world and you want to stay home. All of these are really common issues. And when we hear that other people have the issues, it's not maybe like, okay, that's not my issue. But when we're living it, it can become a full-time source of pain and struggle, conflict in a relationship. And of course, even if that's all it was between you and your spouse, it harms the marriage. And the children are watching and listening and, feeling the pain of not being on the same page. Okay, it's not a small thing to not be on the same page because of those feelings of being uncared for, maybe ignored, devalued. I've seen families where one person wanted to have a pet, the other person didn't want to have the pet. Whoever loses that, thing may feel uncared for, hurt, unseen, unimportant, kind of impotent in their own life, not able to make their own decisions. And there's just a lot of fallout from it. We want to, and it's not small. It's not small when these things happen, even if the issue is small. Okay, it could be all this is happening over a piece of furniture. It could be because, somebody wants a certain kind of dining room table and the other one doesn't. I mean, there's a zillion ways not to be on the same page. Now, we may have heard in the past a solution. You may have heard it from me, because I have talked about this in a certain way, which is kind of a standard marital solution to when you're not being on the same page. And this is that, well, okay, you're not going to get everything you want. Let's take the couch, for example, or the dining room table, or the pet. One of you is going to win and one of you is going to lose. So the best thing to do is make sure that it's not always the same person who's winning. Okay, so if you have a marriage in which one person is getting their way all the time and the other person is getting their way never, it's going to be a very troubled relationship. Eventually, the person who feels suppressed, unseen, disrespected, devalued, etc., eventually, it may take decades, but eventually that person rises from the dust quite often and packs their bags. I mean, unfortunately, I've seen this, where it's just like they're quiet. They're not showing how much suffering they have. And then they just pack their bags. It's like, that's it. There's no place for me in this relationship. Now, some people, their style of dealing with feeling that uncomfortable feeling it's not only not being on the same page now, it's being like, you're on that page, I'm on this page, but I'm never getting what I want here. So some people fight instead. Okay, so there's those silent ones who may eventually walk off, or just walk off at the heart level, right? They stay in the marriage, they don't pack any bags, but they're not really there anymore. Because if you allow your partner to silently suffer, thinking that, okay, I'm getting the sofa that I want. I'm getting the vacation that I want. I'm getting my choice of what school the kids are going to and what they're wearing, what they're eating, what they're doing, and everything. I'm getting what I need. You may not even notice that your partner is not thriving with that, okay? Or that your partner is feeling invisible, unheard, and so on, because a lot of times partners are not fighting for it. Okay, so there's a certain style of person who speaks up and fights, for their rights or for their wishes, and whether they win or lose, at least you know where they're standing. But in a silent partner, it may be harder to tell. I don't know if you've even considered or wondered, how would you know if your partner's feeling really badly about the fact that the decision went your way? If your partner's not fighting about it, okay, if they're not arguing with you, if they're not making a fuss, is there a way to know? What do you think? Because, it's something that I'm asking you now, if you have an idea or if you've seen it in your own life, how can you tell before they close down their heart or before they pack those bags? What are the warning signs that you think you might have overlooked till this very moment, perhaps? What should we be on the lookout for to see? How could we know if we don't have a partner who's willing to stand up and fight? And by the way, we don't want the fight. But if you have any ideas, and I'm not sure, I know you're looking to me, I'll give you my ideas also, but I'm looking to you too. I want to discuss it because this is something that we're all going to have to keep our eyes open for. How can we tell if our partner is okay or not okay with not getting what they want often enough?
Resentment, passive aggressive behavior,
Very
mood
good.
changes, irritability, anger.
When, those are some really good things to look out for. Sometimes we just say, oh, my partner's so moody, my partner's so grouchy, my partner's so miserable. You better wonder about why and not make assumptions. Like we could say, well, it's work, or it's, other circumstances, or it's just the way they are, The best way to find out, actually, with a person who's not that communicative, who doesn't know how to step up with their feelings, doesn't feel entitled to step up with their feelings, or worse of all, has given up stepping up with their feelings, the best way is to actually go to them and check. You seem really distraught. Is there anything going on? And give them a chance, right? They'll say like, yes, okay, you sold my whatever that I didn't want to sell. I didn't want it to happen, and I'm sick of this. And then the person finally, tells you how they really feel. And of course, the response to that should be, thank you for telling me. I didn't know that, and then we have to be concerned. We have to be concerned if our spouse is miserable, because you can't have a really happy marriage where you are the only one who's happy. You may think that it's good, but no. And so people are very often surprised at some drastic things that their partners will do, again, after decades of piling up resentment, as we heard there. So you want to look for, if your partner's not smiling, there could be a lot of reasons, but healthy, happy people in healthy, happy marriages look pretty happy. And it is possible that the person you're living with does suffer from depression, or, nothing to do with you, and you're not the cause of anything. And this isn't the issue. But find out, okay, check before you make that assumption, right? Even after any decision that goes on. So I've decided to get the dog, okay? We've picked one out. He's coming home tonight. I know you didn't want it. I just want to know, like, how bad is this for you? Like, is it like on a scale of 0 to 10? Like I'm kind of hoping that you're going to fall in love with the dog, and I'll check with you in a couple of weeks. And if you really haven't, I guess we'll do something about it. But how are you feeling about the fact that we're getting it tonight? Like, ask, okay? And maybe you'll find out what's really going on. So what I'm saying here is, ideally, you get what you want half the time and the other person gets what they want half the time. But this is not the whole story, as we'll soon see. Okay, this is this is the traditional kind of make sure at least this, okay, that you're not always getting what you want, because, but this negotiation does not bring you on the same page. It's simply managing the fact that you're on different pages. So today's topic is really how to get on the same page, okay? So that you're actually both happy to begin with. So when you're on different pages, there's going to be that dining room table. If there's not going to be that dining room table, one of you wins and one of you loses, half the time. You lose half the time. And you can feel good about that, knowing that your partner is feeling respected and heard and cared for, especially cared for. Because when we steamroll over a partner, they end up feeling very uncared for, which is not a good dynamic in marriage, as you can imagine. Okay, so what do I say? Then those are situations that it's going to be this way or that way. We're going to have the dog, or we're not going to have the dog. We're going to have that dining room table, we're not going to have that dining room table. We're going to live in this country, or not going to live in this country. And those are, the kids are going to go to this school, or not that school. We're going to serve this kind of food, not this kind of food, where it has to go one way or the other. But a lot of times, okay, there are situations when you're not on the same page that you can meet each other halfway. And this is also just a bit of behavioral advice. Again, it's not about actually getting closer on the same page. It's just a way to manage the differences when we're not on the same page. And that is the word compromise. You can't necessarily compromise about living on one side of the ocean versus the other side of the ocean, because the compromise is in the water, right? So we don't want to, not everything is open to compromise. Some of them are open to the 50-50 behavioral solutions, right? But let's say you want to take the family out every Sunday afternoon, and your spouse wants to stay home and get caught up on the things that need to be caught up around the house on those afternoons. So compromise, here looks like every other Sunday we go out, and, every other Sunday we stick around the house and get caught up on what needs to get caught up on, right? That's compromise. And when compromise is possible, then we do it. And there's a million things. Okay, why don't you give me a few more examples of compromise that you've actually compromised on? And I want us to keep them in mind as we move forward into the fact that even compromise is not getting on the same page. Not this way that we're talking about. It's like we said, I'll tell you what, you give me the examples and I'll use them as for my summary. What have you compromised on with your spouse?
Looks like it's just going to take a minute for people to write in.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. Or maybe nobody can think of what they've compromised on.
That could be.
Yeah. Yeah. While you're thinking about that, I might say that people might make a similar compromise to the Sunday one with, visiting relatives. I want to visit my relatives, or have my relatives visit me every week. I don't ever want to see your relatives, so we compromise on bi-weekly or once a month or whatever. That's another kind of compromise, or another example of a compromise. Again, not on the same page, but at least we're living together harmoniously, which is definitely, it's definitely something. Okay.
Let's see. Letting my kids watch videos. I've compromised meeting with my in-laws from 6 days a week to 3 days a week.
Yep.
I'm not sure if this may be the right answer, but I've agreed to be more patient to allow him a chance to do things his way.
It sounds like a compromise. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all that came in so far.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to think of. Sometimes we forget, actually. We make so many compromises. It's funny. I mean, you have to in order to be married. But sometimes we don't necessarily even think of it that way. It's just how we made a decision. This reminds me, actually, there's another way to avoid the not on the same page issue, which is sometimes just to let the other person make the decision in some area. I don't care what car we get. You pick it out, okay? And so the issue no longer becomes, do we need to be on the same page? We can get rid of some of those issues by assigning, you do the finances, okay, or you do the house renovations, or you, whatever. We just like delegate it to the other person. And we drop our involvement in it. And that way it becomes not an issue about being on the same page. We can only do that when we didn't care about the issue that much. I don't want to know about the finances. You do it, do you clean the dishes however you want, just don't involve me, like you could do all the household tasks however you want to do it, like just don't ask me to participate. I wouldn't do it your way. Okay, so that is actually a different way of solving the issue behaviorally of the fact that you're not on the same page. We might just say, here's another way of discussing the same page issue, or another language for it. And we say, well, what are you two fighting about? We say, whatever it is you're fighting about, you're clearly not on the same page. Let me ask it that way too, okay? If we think, well, what do people fight about? So, I've described it here as, not being on the same page, not agreeing, not thinking in the same way. But when the result is conflict, then we might say, well, he definitely sees it one way and I see it the other way. So, and I'm trying to make him see it my way. And this is a huge source of pain in marriage. Of course, if we agreed on every single thing, then maybe there would never be a single fight in marriage, right? What's there to fight about? I mean, you say I'm messy and I agree with you. You say, I'm a slob and I agree with you. If I agree with you, there's nothing to fight about. You're right. I'm sorry. So it's like, I'm not on the same page on my philosophy of cleaning as you are. Okay. So now we're going to be arguing about who's right and who's wrong. We're going to turn to the judges out there. I don't know where. We're going to take a survey, say whose way is the right way and whose way is the wrong way. So again, let's try and think of it maybe this way. What are you fighting about? And you'll see where we're not on the same page and how you've resolved those issues. So I'm going to come back to that. What are we fighting about? But let's just move on and say these techniques that we have for resolving a conflict, okay, that is where your partner wants one thing, you want a different thing. We have the win half the time, lose half the time. And if possible, if it's not one of those kinds of situations, meet your partner halfway. Those are behavioral suggestions. And I think if it was that simple, most of us are fairly intelligent and not so, I don't know what the word is exactly, but let's say not so narcissistic that we really would pull everything our own way. Maybe we think our partner is like that, but we're, I'm sure we consider ourselves, most of us, to be fairly reasonable and to want to make our partner happy. This is going to be an underlying theme here, because if you don't care about your partner, you only care about the issue, or you come across that way. No, this table is the most important thing in the universe. I want this table. We can lose the sight of the bigger project, which is called marriage, family life, parenting, love. But we can lose that whole thing while we're hyper-focused on the issues. How many times we're going to visit your mother or let her come to our house, what we're going to eat for dinner, how we're going to solve the kids', repetitive flu things. We can become so focused on these issues that we're disagreeing with that the marriage itself, it becomes a non-issue. But it's slowly dying in the process of how we're solving it. So no, we have to keep that marriage up front and center, which is why in the next few weeks, we're actually going to be delving deep into all the ways in which we disagree and all the areas specifically, and see what we can do about it, because this conflict erodes the feeling of love. It's not just that there are issues in every area that we've mentioned so far, but the conflict breaks the heart, and the broken heart breaks the marriage. So that's why it's so important. And this brings us back to why these behavioral techniques for solving differences the 50% and the 100% compromise type of things, are not enough. They're not enough for us to understand, because the issue is marriage, not the table, not the school, not the health, okay, not the food, and not all those other things. The issue is the family, is the marriage itself. And you're dealing not with the table, you're dealing with a person. And because the person you're dealing with has personality, personal habits, a personal way of being, a soul, what you're really interacting with here is the feelings, the emotions, the thoughts, the values, the whole personality of your spouse as it impacts the table decision. Okay, so the table decision is kind of like the small piece here. Okay, it's the personality, the habits, the values, the soul of your partner that needs to be primary, because your partner is a person in his or her own right, and you are a full person in your own right. So you have all those feelings and values and ideas. Just using the table thing, and please give me another example, because whatever is important to you. But I'm just saying, people sometimes can have an argument about the table, and what does the table mean to me? Okay, a table means 100 guests. I want that big table because I want lots of guests in my house. And also, I don't care that it costs $10,000, because it's the centerpiece of my house, which has to do with how I feel about money and where I should put it. And what it's to be used for. And then, my spouse may think a table's a table. I got a good one from Costco, and it's very cheap. And anyways, I'm putting a tablecloth on top of it. And who cares? Whatever. That's not important. That's not a good use of money. I'd rather give it to charity, and so who is saying all this? Who is feeling all this? It's not only about, well, you got to decide, on the bed we chose, or the furniture in the family room. You got to decide that. So it's my turn, and I decide the table. Okay, so that's the behavioral way. That is the way that ignores the people involved, which is when we focus only on the behavioral way, even if we're doing it well. In terms of, he gets his way 50%, I get my way 50%. Even if we are doing it well, if it's only that technical way, and we're not paying attention to what's important to the person and who that person is, then we can still have fallout. And I'm going to explain it a little bit more here. Let's say I'm a little bit ADHD. Or I'm a free-spirited person or something. When I come in, I'm right-brained. We can say this in different ways, but when I come in the house, I throw my coat and my bags and books, whatever it is, right in front of me, and I proceed to the kitchen to make dinner, because that's just how I do it, let's say. And when my spouse comes in, actually, I'll add to that, because some of you may relate to this. You come to the house, you drop everything right wherever you are. The coat goes on the railing, the bags go, right by the stairs. I want to get my coffee. I want to start dinner. I'm in a rush. I'll take care of the mess later. And then the spouse comes home and immediately hangs up his coat. Let's say he's a neat freak. He puts his key in the drawer where he'll never lose it. He is stressed because he sees these bags in the floor, and he needs a clean hallway for his brain. Otherwise, it makes him feel very uncomfortable and stressed and annoyed and hugely uncared for, disrespected, because we've been living together for 10 or 12 years or something, and I'm supposed to know that he can't stand that. It really is a horrible way for him to enter his home at the end of the day. So we are people, okay? My brain, let's say, I'm just making this up because I'm not really like that. I do hang up my coat, but but that's about it. But anyways, the point is, the ignoring of the who we are just doesn't work, because let's say that I am this free-spirited person, and my brain is organized the way it's organized, and he's trying to squish me and twist me and make me a different person who can walk in the house, hang up the coat, put everything in the way where it's supposed to go, and then do the dinner, the kitchen, or whatever it is. He wants to change my essence. This isn't we're not on the same page, kind of like you think it's clean and you want it clean and I don't care for a while. It can stay like that. It's not just that. It's who we are at our core. This spouse, this imaginary spouse of mine, he can't help that he needs it clean, or he gets very stressed. Okay, that is how his brain works. That is the brain that God gave him. He needs it that way. Perhaps he was raised in a house that was chaotic, and his way of taking control of the trauma and the chaos and whatever it was to have a neat corner of the universe. Or maybe his mother was, OCD, whatever it is, OCDP, whatever person, BD, whatever. And he was raised that way, okay? Plus he has the brain because he got her genes, and that's how it has to be. However, that's his body, his brain. He can't help it. He cannot become more like me, more free-spirited. And I cannot become more like him, more rigid, more clean, more organized, whatever it is, more space up there. I can't do it, okay? So we see here how it's getting a little bit more complicated than it first looks, okay? Well, anyways, let's say that we as a couple then decide to work this out because we're fighting about it all the time. We go for marriage counseling, and he expresses, how the lack of me hanging up my coat makes him feel uncared for, unloved, unappreciated after all he does all day. And I can't even come in and hang up the coat. And he's been asking me for 12 years already to do it. How hard is it exactly, right? This is his cry to the marriage counselor. And obviously I don't care about him, because if I did, I would get my act together. I would do it, right? And I tell the counselor, let's say, that he has no understanding of me and doesn't accept me for who I am. I come in, I'm running home from work, I'm late. It's just the way I want to get that dinner going. No, I don't think that way. It's not about him. I've always lived like this, and I can't. Sometimes I get on a roll for a couple of days or maybe even a couple of weeks, and I hang up the coat, and then my brain defaults to its natural position, and I can't do it. I've made changes. Each one was so hard for me to do, but he wants every single thing his way, blah, okay? So we go to many marriage counselors and discuss this for many years. But it does turn out that our different ways we learn eventually. It takes, let's say, after 5 years or so, my husband comes to understand that it's not lack of caring that prompts me to not be able to do it his way, but that my brain is different than his brain. And I don't even see the mess that he sees. I don't understand it, and I can't do it. He eventually, let's say after 5 years of counseling, comes to understand that I'm never going to turn into that kind of housekeeper for him, because that would be a completely different person, not me, let's say. And so he gives that dream up, feeling not happy about it. He may feel resentful that I misled him when we were married or something, or he didn't see it earlier. He gives up, but he feels gypped, disappointed, depressed, that he's going to have to live like this his whole life. Neatness is one of his prime values, and he feels robbed of what is most important to him because of my scattered brain style, which he now accepts, let's say. And let's say for my part, after a few more years of counseling, maybe 10 years into it, because I'm a slow learner, let's say I have learning disabilities as well, I begin to understand that my husband is anxious. And all this neatness is about controlling his environment and reducing his anxiety. And it's not a personal attack on me. And he's not a control freak, as I've been assuming, because I thought he was just critical and nitpicking and controlling. And now I really get it. I get that he's anxious. And he has a different brain and different mental state. He's not chilled like I am, let's say, okay? I'm relieved that he's not the horrible monster I thought he was, but at the same time, I'm also exhausted now, hopeless, depressed, because I understand that this is never going away once I come to terms with it. Okay, now this as we see, the cleaning the hallway thing could sound like a simple, we're just not on the same page about these things. But looked at a little bit differently, we can see that it's more than that and has deeper ramifications. Personality differences, brain differences can make it exceedingly hard to get on the same page. And in fact, disappointment when we realize that's never going to happen exactly, is part of every marriage. If you think that you're the only one who's unhappy because of this, you're totally wrong. But we need to do something so that gypped part, that unhappy, depressed, ripped off and resentful reaction doesn't happen. We want, if possible, to save ourselves those 5 and 10 years of counseling to come to realize that there are reasons why our partner is on a different page to begin with. And we want to find solutions that don't leave us feeling so awful, all right? I mean, part of this is coming to understand that there are some things that will change and many things that won't, okay? If we could give that lesson to ourselves on the very first day of marriage, because a lot of people spend a lot of time working really, really hard, but to change the other person, but they don't realize what's underneath the wishes and the values of that other person. They just take it kind of superficially. And this is part of what causes so much pain, right? So that but anyways, like, it's just, for example, you may have married somebody, who, when you were dating, it didn't bother you that they liked a lot of private time or downtime, stay-at-home time. They were kind of introverted. But after a little bit of marriage, your extroverted nature makes you miss people, and you want to go out socializing with groups of people or other couples or other people, or get moving, And now the fact that your partner is this homebody who never wants to go out becomes an area of contention. And you talk about it, superficially, like, this is something that could, if you just cared about me, you would do it more often, like, without really understanding the underlying fact that your partner is a person, a whole person with real things going on inside that prompt all behaviors and all desires. Let's say, that a rigid person is not going to become a flexible, easygoing person. The workaholic is not going to be able to give up, making money at every opportunity necessarily, or career building opportunities to spend 10 hours on a Sunday to sit in your parents' living room with you because you think family time is very important. Maybe this stuff is not ever going to happen. And maybe you shouldn't waste 10 years fighting about it, okay? So, like, we have to decide where we're going to be able to move our partner and where we're not going to be able to, but it's going to start more at the values level. Understanding that the thing that works best in marriage is celebrating your partner the way that person is, not, the way you wish that person would be. So because the more you allow your partner to be him or herself, the more your marriage will flourish. And so your eye is on, how can we have you be you and me be me in this situation? And being ourselves, come on a page together. Okay, that'll be on the same page. We're going to meet from our different pages on a new page, on the same page, not just behavioral compromise, but respecting each other's underlying values and goals. So just for example, let's say that I find my spouse too lighthearted, doesn't take life seriously enough. Or I find my serious spouse too serious and I want him to lighten up, okay? So we cannot ask our partner to become more mature and more serious because these are deep-rooted traits in the personality. We can't change our spouse's personality, all right? We can get some behavioral change, but we need to modify our understanding of that 50% negotiation stuff and the even the compromise stuff to take that personality, those values, those thoughts, and those feelings into not just a little account, but to make them the priority. Let's say if we have money, we can solve some problems, for example. One example I have here is that the spouse who understands early on, not after 10 years of counseling, that his wife is free-spirited, ADHD, or whatever she is, cannot. I mean, you should really catch on after about a year, because if the person loves you at the beginning of marriages, they usually do, and has not managed to make the change for you, that's a very big hint that their brain cannot easily do that. You're asking for something more than we can get from another person. Okay. So let's say that this guy's smart. He figures out a year into it, I guess my wife can't do it, but they have some money and they hire a housekeeper who has, OCD, PD, that is, the kind of personality disorder that makes them want to clean everything and put it in order and whatever it is, a combination of that and OCD, whatever she needs. Or she's just extremely proficient. She's very good. She has a mind like the husband's, and she will keep the house clean. And now he's no longer feeling like, I can't get what I want. Okay, I can't get what I need. He's no longer feeling resentful that, the wife is just not ever going to provide it. Now, if they don't have money, you might be wondering, well, how are they going to solve that same problem? We're going to get to that kind of thing later when we look at these things in more depth, okay? I'm just pointing out that sometimes if you catch on early and you can solve the problem, not always with money, it's some other way, okay? That you don't keep trying to get your spouse to be who they are not. And that is not, this is a way of making the problem go away. That's not an example of getting on the same page, except for if the free-spirited partner who actually doesn't like a house that clean, you're going to end up on the same page, and there will be your compromise. If this woman says, I don't want a cleaning lady trailing behind me, making everything go away, but I know you need that. I know you need that for your peace of mind. I can see how important it is to you. I know you've been asking me all year to try and do better on this, and I wish I could. I can't. And even though I don't want this person in my house all day, every day, I don't want it. I want to do it for you because I know you need to be comfortable. And then he looks at her with love. Thank you. I know it's hard for you to have somebody in the house all day, and I appreciate it. And you see now that they respect who each other are as people. And they have gotten off their own pages to get onto a new page to work this out for each other. So they're not fighting at who the other person is anymore. You're crazy, okay? Like nobody keeps a house like this, or you're uptight, you're insane. Like nobody keeps a house like that. Like people get very judgmental about the other person when they're not trying to accept, starting with trying to accept, okay, this is the way you are. I'm not going to change that. Let's say there's a woman who she's very, mature in her own way, but her husband makes silly jokes in public all the time, embarrassing her all the time. And she's asking him, would you stop doing that? Like you act ridiculous, okay? And you think they're laughing, but they're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you, whatever, especially when you make jokes about women. I cannot stand it, okay? And, she's wanting him to knock it off. But he is a joker, okay? And he's always been a joker. So, he tries sometimes, but a little joke comes out and she yells at him for an hour after, and that's it. I'm never going out with you in public. I'm never having guests over because you can't keep your mouth shut. And they have horrible fights about it. Either when they were dating, he either controlled that or she didn't notice it. Something happened there, how she ended up marrying this guy. But they are married now, and they're going to keep this marriage together. This is not grounds for divorce, but this has in their marriage been grounds for a lot of conflict. But let's say she takes a course and she doesn't spend 10 years in counseling trying to figure this out. She realizes it's who he is. He can't, this would kill him, okay? It would twist the life out of him to ask him to stop joking around. So she understands that this is who he is, and she has to let him be who he is. On the other hand, he also has to understand that she's sensitive, before his line was, "You're too sensitive. Okay, you're being ridiculous. I'm not going to tiptoe around you and keep my mouth shut. You're a control freak." Okay, so that's how he was handling it. Now, perhaps he says to her, "I know it doesn't sit well with you. I obviously don't want you to suffer every time we have people around. I want us to be able to socialize with other people, and I want you to feel okay about it. I'm going to make the jokes because I can't keep my mouth shut, but I'll tell you what I definitely can do. I can stop making cracks about women. It's not, I can do that for you. Would that be enough?" And she says, "That'd be a lot." And now they've gotten off their separate pages onto their same pages. So, you see, in terms of the personality factors, I was wrong earlier, when I said people don't take into consideration the spouse's personality. They do. They take it in, but the wrong way. They basically say, "You're crazy, you're wrong, nobody would agree with you," and we try to bring in the court to explain why you need to change and get on my page. But here we're going to say, you are who you are. And I want to respect that and help you continue to be that. While I am who I am, and I want you to respect that too. Now, if your partner is not watching the webinar with you today, or is not going to watch the follow-up course for how we get into the details of all of this around all the different issues, then that's okay. Because once you know what you're after here, you can bring that language to the conversation. So you can actually help your spouse to see that you care about your partner. You care about him or her. You care who they are and what they stand for and where they're coming from. You respect their neuroses, if that, in a certain way. In other words, you're anxious. I have to accept that and respect that. I'm not going to say get over it, right? Or whatever you are, you're afraid to spend money. And instead of me telling you you're nuts, you need to, go see a psychiatrist or whatever it is, I need to work with that. I need to accept you and love you and respect you and all of your hangups and understand that they come from they come from a legitimate place. Let's put it that way. They come from genes. They come from childhood background. They come from everything we were to that day in time. And they're not going to just poof off because we said we don't like them when it comes to, how they impact our decision making, when it comes to parenting or our entire family life, right? So, and I am the way I am. But when you come to your spouse and say, "I want to help you be who you are. I'm not going to fight this, okay? I love who you are, and I care about who you are. And I don't want to suck the life out of you so that you can become more what I want you to be, what I, wanted you to be, or who I am, ideally, right? But when you come together with that mutual respect, by you helping your partner, if your partner's, your partner could watch all these things too, right? But if your partner isn't, no worries. You're going to have a language that you can speak that's different than, "No, you're crazy. You're wrong. This is, people need to do this or that." You get off of that stuff and get into a whole different love language when it comes to negotiating the differences that we have. There's more to say about it, but I think, Jillian, you probably want to jump in here and maybe explain what we will be talking about a little bit in the coming weeks in case people want to go deeper.
Yes, of course. I see people anxiously awaiting to find out how they can continue on. You've really scratched the surface, and it's been such an amazing class so far. And as I promised, we will have time for some Q&A. So let me go ahead and explain just how your journey will continue. And if you have questions, feel free to put those in so that we can get to those questions very shortly. I have to ask you, I see, like I said, people already wanting to join. If you're ready to continue on with Chana and learn more about exactly how we can approach these differences in a positive and proactive manner, just come back to the chat box right now and write the words yes. And I am going to give you all of the details now. Okay, great. And I see people writing, yes, yes. Get on with it already, right? Okay, here we go. Your journey is going to continue through the next 8 weeks. We are going to scratch deep. We're not going to scratch the surface. We're going to go deeper into so many different ways that we can really help get on the same page as our spouse. And week 1, which we'll be starting already next week, is negotiating different values and strategies concerning discipline. So we'll examine and work with varying parenting philosophies and styles, such as strict versus lenient, compassionate versus punitive interventions, gentle versus firm, rule-oriented versus relaxed, natural versus structured consequences, etc. And then we'll follow up with that week 2, negotiating differences in bedtime philosophies, explore the contrasts between bedtimes versus flex times, rules versus none, kids in the parental bed or bedroom, handling nighttime wake-ups at different ages and stages, handling wake-up issues and morning lateness. And again, these topics, oh gosh, they're so relevant for me right now. So let's skip to number 2 right away. But we're going to continue on. Everybody gets a topic that I'm sure will really speak to you. In week 3, we're going to talk about negotiating differences in eating and mealtime routines. So find a way to work through conflicting opinions on healthy versus ordinary eating, meal times versus grazing, table routines, rituals, and responsibilities. Week 4, negotiating differences in values, religion, extended family relationships. So here we're going to navigate the rocky terrain regarding formal prayer and institutional worship for your children, strictness in the home regarding laws and customs, differences in opinions regarding choices of schools, and so on. In week 5, negotiating differences in financial values and lifestyle, identify common ground while discussing different ideas about how many vacations should be taken, opinions about allocating dollars for purchasing necessities, luxuries and saving, purchasing new versus used, purchasing versus renting, and so on. And then in week 6, negotiating differences in leisure activities, homework, extracurricular, and downtime. Exploring and negotiating different values and standards in the home regarding expanding educational opportunities, hobbies, sports, skills, computer time, and so on. And then finally, weeks 7 and 8 will be full hour Q&A and implementation sessions. This will really give you the chance to get all of your questions answered and gain advice from answers to a wide range of questions from fellow members, plus a little more time to show exactly how to implement all of these tools and strategies that you'll be collecting throughout the 6 weeks. So each ongoing class will be live and interactive, allowing you to get your biggest questions answered and stay completely anonymous if you choose. They will take place on Thursdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Israel time. And our first class, as I mentioned, starts next week, Thursday, March 2nd. But don't worry, if you can't make it to a live class, the recording will be available to you in your own personal membership area every Sunday after that live class takes place. And these will be yours for a lifetime. So you'll have them to listen to and download at your convenience. A lot of people like to listen and re-listen several times, take notes. Of course, notes will also be provided to help you follow along with your classes. And I have to mention, because I know that actually the majority of our members aren't necessarily able to join live, but that is also why we extend those 2 full hours of Q&A time. So if you have questions and you're not able to get those answered during the class time, please just make sure, to write it down and send it in for our Q&A time, and we'll make sure that they're addressed then. In addition to all of these weekly classes, you'll also get several bonus classes. We have our full series on a proven path to wholeness and well-being. It's an 8-part series that will allow you to empower yourself to take the time and energy needed to tend to your emotional and physical well-being, so you'll be strong enough to tend to others wholeheartedly. Plus, taming your anger. Foster a family-wide atmosphere of peace and calm by channeling your anger in ways that are healthy and productive. Plus, you'll get the tools you need to be equipped to help those you love, your children and your spouse, deal with their own frustrations in a proactive manner. And finally, A third bonus, developing social skills. Take a deep dive into developing social skills for yourself and your kids. Learn the skills, tips, and tricks necessary to navigate the painful feelings associated with social anxiety, comfortability, introversion, extroversion, self-esteem, and more. As you can see, Sarahana is going to be walking you through various aspects of marriage and emotional well-being to ensure that you and your family are set to thrive. You'll have one-on-one support throughout this program and will have the unique opportunity to get your personal questions answered that you haven't been able to get answered previously. And as Sarahana mentioned a few times, nobody wants anyone to be in counseling for the next 10 years, or if you've already been there 10 years, not another 10 years. We want to be able to get you on the path to getting back on that same page and get you there much quicker and in a much more I guess community oriented, should I say, setting. You'll be online with like-minded people, and we're all here for the same goal and the same reason. And we've picked the most suitable expert that we can find. And Sarahana's guidance has helped thousands around the world. So we are really excited about putting this together for you. Most importantly, by investing in yourself and your family now, you'll discover how to free yourself from that constant irritability, agitation, and exhaustion, and start trusting your spouse's abilities. You'll finally be able to give your spouse the space and respect they need to bring their unique perspective to the table and be the positive role models your children deserve. Stop acting like enemies and start feeling like the team that you've always wanted to be. Choose to have fun, love, grow, and connect with the people around you and start living the balanced and peaceful life that you deserve. And empower each other by having one another's backs and work as partners during critical decision-making times. An opportunity like this rarely comes along, but we listen to all of our members' requests, and together, like I said, with a one-of-a-kind mentor, Sarahana, we are offering the guidance you need and deserve for a highly reduced rate. Plus, I have one more exciting surprise. If you've joined us before, you know our special raffle that we offer just during our introductory sessions. And anybody who signs up right now while we're still on the line for the next 40 or so minutes will actually get automatically entered into our raffle, and the lucky winner tomorrow will get their spot for free. So we've done our raffle now for, probably over a year or so. And everybody looks forward to it. Everybody loves to get put into a raffle, and especially the people who are really serious about moving forward. Whether you win or not, it's exciting to have that opportunity and to get your ticket in there. And of course, our winners have always been appreciative and come back for more. So I will go ahead and put your link in the chat box. Let me show you exactly again, one more time, the breakout of what you're going to be getting. You can become a basic member today and get the full 8 weeks of live classes. Plus, as I mentioned, all of the recordings will be available to you in your own personal membership area where you and your spouse can listen and watch if your spouse chooses to join you as well for just $297. And then you can become a platinum member and get the full 8 weeks plus the recordings, plus your 3 bonus series, A Proven Path to Wholeness and Well-Being, Taming Your Anger, and Developing Social Skills for just $397. And again, as I just said, if you're purchasing right now while we're still on the line, then you will get put into a raffle and you'll have a chance to win your seat for free. So you'll register, you'll get everything, and you'll actually be the winner will get their ticket to the full series refunded tomorrow. So let me go ahead and put your link right here in the chat box. I'll also put it up on the screen, and I'll just read it out loud for those of you who are joining in by phone. So it's www.jewishworkshops.com/same page. www.jewishworkshops.com/same page. And just one word, obviously. Let me go ahead and put that on the screen. I do have to tell you, oftentimes when people are all going to the same place at the same time, there can be a little bit of a slowdown on the website. It's happened before. Please be patient, or if you need any help registering, of course, just come right back here to your chat box with your name and your phone number, and we will certainly give you a call right away to help you register and make sure that you get automatically entered into that raffle. You don't lose your spot if we help you do it over the phone. And if you've completed your registration, or when you complete your registration, please come right on back to the chat box and just write the words "I'm in" with your first name so that I can welcome you. We always love to see our newest members and have a special shout out. You can also put your initials if you're not comfortable with your first name being read out loud, but just write your first name or your initials and the words "I'm in." I do have to also just say that if you are a Family Circle member already, this is part of your membership, so no need to register again. But for those who are not Family Circle members and you are registering now, you will also get a chance to join the Family Circle after registration. So keep a lookout for that extra page. Once you've registered, you'll have the chance to get your first month free in the Family Circle. So make sure to choose yes for that as well. Oh, and thank you so much. One of our members just wrote, "Love being part of the Family Circle. Chana is amazing." That is so sweet. Thank you. That is wonderful. Okay, I do have time for some questions. So if you want to go ahead and put any of those in. I know we did get some questions ahead of time as well, so I want to try and get to some of those too. Chana, we did have a question come in just a little bit earlier. Can you elaborate on this idea in terms of earning a living where husband is laid back in terms of work, but the wife can't handle a full-time job with little kids? How can a couple balance that?
Nice to start with such a simple question. Oh gosh, getting on the same page is something that almost covers every topic that comes up in marriage. And so let me think about this one. The husband is not making quite enough money, but the wife cannot do it. She's got the job of taking care of little kids, and she maybe is able to work part-time, but she cannot do more. Okay. And if they care about each other, and if that's the focus, let's say the formula that we're looking at here is trying to respect each other's actual self, the personality. So we could say that the issue here is money. It's a money issue. We need more money for this family. And we've got two people who, in their natural personalities and their strengths, their weaknesses, what they bring to the table, are doing kind of right now the best that they can do. So, or what they would naturally do, let's say. Okay, so this woman, maybe if you push her hard enough, maybe she could, take a full-time job, have a nervous breakdown, neglect the household, and, but money would be there. They would solve the money problem. And sometimes that's what people, come up with, because you need the money if it has to eat. But that doesn't sound too good, in terms of taking care. This man has to take care of his wife and make sure she doesn't die on the job, right? So on the other hand, she knows that he is who he is, and he's not a go-getter, or he doesn't know how to go get. It's not in his nature. He's not aggressive. For some reason, whatever it is he does not translate into dollars. So respecting the limitation that he cannot be turned into somebody else with a different personality. He's not Mr. Moneymaker. He can't do it. They have to talk about that. Okay. They have to talk about how to each other in that language. She's going to say, I'm capable. I know I'm capable. I could do it, but it would probably be the end of me, mentally and physically. It's not a good idea for our family for me to do more than I'm doing. I need you to look me in the eye and tell me you don't want me to hurt myself and the family in the process of making money. I need you to look at me, see how much I can do. Okay. And I see you, that you're doing what you can do. And this is you, but it leaves us without enough money. Okay. So now we don't have the clothes that our children need. We don't have the housing space that we need. We don't have the quality of food that we need. So, there's a money problem, but neither you nor I seem to be able to bring this money in. That the conversation must show respect for who is who. Like she cannot say to him, which might be very tempting, get out and get me the money. Okay. Because on the money level, that's how we're going to talk about it. I need the money. Who cares that you don't know how to make it, that you can't make it, that it's not, you have no skills or whatever. It may be that they plan for they work it out, like, because now that we're saying who we are and what we can and can't do, and we want to take care of each other, and we're coming at it from that, the conversation softens. And maybe there can be something about him learning some new way of making money that fits in with the fact that he's not an aggressive money-making type person. There might be another venue for him to make money, or there might be a way to bring in money from, I don't know, the community, or there might be a way to lower whatever expenses they have. But if they're really trying to respect each other's, they're not insulting each other, they're going to do the very best that they can. Now, they could really destroy the marriage over this, because she might say, he's just a loser person, not doing what he should do. So I'm going to, get up and leave. I mean, the point, this is a very, very difficult issue that I would have to know a lot more about before I kind of, make any big statements. But we have to keep in mind that when couples hit a spot like this, sometimes they think, well, let's break up the family. I don't like you anymore because you're not doing what you need to do for this family. And I don't know how that solves a problem, because it could be that this man who's not making money is a good father, a very good father possibly, or he's a very important stability factor in holding this home together. The children have a home, a single home, a roof over their head. This is nothing small, and losing that is something huge as far as the development of the children goes. So, and there are spiritual questions here too, like, why would God do this to me? Put me in a situation with a man I thought was going to support me who doesn't make any money. He can't. This is a very complicated question. So let's not make small of it, shall we say. Let's not diminish it by trying to answer it in this format, okay? But it is something that we will go a little bit more into depth with in the course, in terms of what a person could do there. But I've given it a quick brush. But it's one of the hardest questions you've got, okay? And I would say much bigger than the dining room table, for example, okay? So let's honor the difficulty and the challenge here and reserve further comment on it till we have more time. Okay?
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do want to welcome our newest members. Welcome FC. Welcome Rifki. Welcome Razy. Sorry, let me just see where I lost. Oh, and welcome Leia. Really great to have everybody. And please, again, when you have registered already, just come back and let me know with your either initials or your first name and the words "I'm in." And if you still have questions or need help registering, please feel free to put your name and your telephone number right here in the chat box. I do just want to remind everybody, especially if you are new to our workshops, that nobody can see the chat box except for myself, the moderator. So please, again, feel free to put in your questions and definitely share your phone number so that we can help you register, obviously. But the entire audience won't be able to see any of the questions you put in or any information that you add there. Let me just get to some other questions because there were some really good ones. Sarahana, can you share some language starters to initiate a conversation for getting on the same page?
You're going to start with your spouse's position. You're like we said about the guy with the sense of humor. If the woman was trying to stop him from insulting women in public through his humor, let's say, so, when she starts the conversation, she's going to say, you know, honey, you have quite the sense of humor. It's you. It's so you, you know, and you know, it's what is charming about you, or what people find, you know, they're, instead of saying, you know, they're laughing at you, whatever, she's going to say, you know, you make people laugh. And it's a great thing. And you know that I'm not quite the same when it comes to that, you know, so she's going to, like, I'm not the funny type. I don't make those jokes, and I don't even know what's so funny about them, you know, but I see that it's fun for you and that people enjoy them. And he might say, like, well, finally, you know, like, because maybe up till this point you've been going like, could you stop it? You sound ridiculous, you know, like, so the conversation starts with acknowledging the strength and the beauty of the other person's personality. Or, you know, the guy who doesn't want to spend any money, you know, like, I have an issue I want to talk to you about, and I want to, you know, start off. It is a money issue, but I want to start off by acknowledging that the sense of responsibility you have for our family's finances is really awesome. And it's not everybody who would be as responsible, as caring as you are about those things. And I used to just think you were cheap and small-minded. Okay, let's face it. I've been talking about that for a long time. But, you know, I've had a chance to rethink, like, what is the upside of this? And you know, you're really taking care of us for the long term. I appreciate that. And I also understand it's kind of part of your overall personality. It's who you are. The guy I married, you know, like, you have foresight, like, you can look into the future and see things I can't, you know, you can figure out how this is going to affect things later. And your brain is wise and good. And it's also attached to your head. And I know that it's the only way you can think. And so I'm going to raise a question that we have to, you know, make a decision on, but keeping in mind that you're someone I can count on, rely on, and trust. And that your mind is very, very good, and that I appreciate you. And I hope that you will also appreciate, let's say, my sense of, you know, family life, or whatever it is I'm about to spend. Let's say I'm going to be talking about a family vacation. I hope that you can look at me and see that my values and where I'm coming from, blah, blah. And now we're going to talk about my personality a little bit. So the formula always begins with what's great about you, and this, what I used to perceive just yesterday as a shortcoming, how I am now reframing that as essential to who you are, and how it's a trait that can be used for good, or that is in your mind being used only for the good. Okay? That would be the opening lines.
Thank you again. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm here. Thank you. I like to put myself on mute just in case in the middle. But okay, let me get to some more questions here, because I know that we are running short on time. Of course, I'm sorry, I have to welcome Miriam, our newest member. And let me get to some more questions. How can an outsider help a couple to start having the approach you're recommending to help their marriage if each of them thinks the other one should change?
I'm not sure about the outsider part of the question, but I'll just reiterate that our philosophy here that I'm putting forward is that nobody's going to change. No, you're not going to change the brain and the personality and the value system and the heart and soul of your partner. So we're working with that assumption that or hopefully you are now working with that, so that your opening line to your partner is, I'm not asking you to change. We have a decision about a table, or about sending our kids to camp, or about taking the kid to the doctor or the naturopath. We have this question, okay? But I'm not asking you to change. I like you the way you are. That part of I like you the way you are, I love you the way you are, okay? It's really, really, really important, because marriage is about that. It's not about these decisions. These decisions are vehicles for interacting with each other, but the marriage is about the love. So now your partner might respond with, yeah, I don't want to hear about your crazy naturopath stuff. You know, like, we have a very good doctor. Antibiotics are a need here. Give all the needles, the shots, and whatever it is. Like, I'm not interested in what you have to say, and you can stop flattering me. Like, if you've been saying something different, you know, fighting about the issues, or wanting the other person to think differently or be different, you're going to have to introduce this. As I took a course and I realized that what I've been doing all this time in asking you to become somebody different, more like me, that's not how we're going to get on the same page. The same page for us is going to be a new page, which is neither you nor me, but allows both of us to come entirely as ourselves to the new page. Okay. Obviously, this is a new way of thinking for everybody. So, and it's not, the language is not unimportant. It's not like a little like, oh, you're talking about a subtlety here. Like, you're really just dressing up in different words. What you really want me to do is take the kid to the naturopath. I don't care how you say it, right? Whereas what I really want you to do is stop doing that and take the kid to the doctor. So your spouse is going to have to see through you seeing first that, no, it's not about that. It's about me accepting you and you accepting me, because neither of us can change our brains or the way we think and feel deep inside. It's about me loving you and wanting to make you feel comfortable. And it's about you loving me and wanting you to make me feel comfortable. And as we learn to really deal with every issue through that lens, we're going to work out the issues. It's going to be fine. They aren't important anyways. What's important is us and our home. So you're going to have to sell that again and again until your spouse believes you. It depends on how you've been behaving till now and how long you've been behaving that way, right? Like it, but it does help to say, I've taken a course. I've been enlightened. I see it differently now. I've changed. Please give me this chance, because I want us to be different now. I want us to stop fighting. Okay.
Thank you. That was really beautiful. I love that idea. I do just want to follow up because I see some questions that are from the similar vein. How do you, as the person who is then obviously putting yourself out there to make those changes and see it in a different light, how do you not still take that as hurtful and and have resentment build up? So in the case where we were talking about earlier, where, the husband works a lot and isn't home or available for the family, obviously that's hurtful, that's painful, that, that is a change that she wants to happen. But in accepting that that's, the case, and being respectful and even appreciative of him working and supporting the family, how do you let go of the hurt?
Again, these are really good questions, and not simple, but we'll start off with just saying that there was a feeling you listed at the beginning of that list of feelings that she has. I guess it's the hurt feeling. You see, our partner is not being him or herself to hurt us, right? So let's say this guy he's the opposite of the guy we just spoke about. This one is a driven, workaholic, money conscious. It depends. People have different reasons for working, right? Like they might have goals to help the community, to help the world. And they're not making any money, but they're out of the house all the time. They're not home. Or they might be working because they want to set aside a lot of money for the benefit of the family. Maybe this guy's father was impoverished, and he made a decision when he was young. My family will never be impoverished. I don't know. You see, we have to respect that the person we marry, even if they're 22 years old or 24 years old or whatever they are, their entire life impacted on them. So in a very, very deep way, that's how God made it, that our childhoods shape our brain and our value system. It's designed that way because originally, Adam and Eve were made as adults, right? And after that, there was this child rearing period where, in other words, we could be born as adults but no, we have to go through this process and acquire all sorts of learnings and experiences from our childhood home. So I'm just going to say, let's say this guy, the workaholic, his father was the guy on the couch, all right? And he determined he will not do that to his wife or children. And he works and he's received success. And maybe this guy also didn't do so well in school, but he was driven. And now this is where he's found his success. Like, he's never had success till he got into this business, and he was blessed with, with tremendous success. And that motivates him, keeps him going. And he knows he's doing something very, very good in a compulsive way for his family. And, she's going to come and try and give him perspective or something, right? Now, she's hurt because of her interpretation of these events, that she's saying now, if you loved me, you would get on the same page here. You would stop doing what you're doing and do what I need you to do. Even on the compromise level, let's say I'm not asking you to be home with me all the time. That would be ridiculous. I'm just asking you to make a date night with me, or I'm just asking you to come home by 8 o'clock instead of 11 o'clock. Like, I'm not, saying don't ever work, and she thinks she is compromising or setting up forward a compromise, but that compromise does not take into account her husband's personality, his reasons, his deepest anxieties or his deepest values or anything. They're not taken into account. She's not talking about those. She's just saying, come home. You don't come home, I guess you don't care. And because of her language, it doesn't help solve the problem. Okay, like, if she's going to talk to him about it, it has to be that she embraces and tries to understand where he's coming from. She embraces who he is and why he needs to do this. She has to get a better conversation with him about that. Maybe he would come home a little bit, but even if he doesn't come home, he's not doing it. He's not being himself to hurt her. Okay, what she can be legitimately is disappointed, lonely. She can feel not abandoned, because he's not abandoning her. Actually, he's just doing what he needs to do in his personality. That's the same thing as he is not actively hurting her. In his mind, that's not what's going on. All right. But she can feel, because he's not anywhere near her, right? Alone, lonely, sad. Those are legitimate feelings, even when she understands that he's not doing it to her. Then she might say, well, if he loved me enough, he would stop doing that. But I think perhaps if he understood of her a little bit more, if they were talking, perhaps, I can't guarantee it, at a deeper level of the personality, of his personality and her personality, maybe he would find a way to soften the blow a bit. But he's never going to turn into a guy who's home in the evenings with his family. So no matter what, she has to come to terms with what God planted in front of her. And that's a course in itself, which I'm happy to do later. We can talk about that. How we accept the life we've been given and what we make of it. Because so many of the things that are disappointing and didn't turn out the way we wanted them to, we can sit in a pool of our tears for a lifetime, which will not be a very productive way to live our lives. Okay. I think, we really perhaps should delve a little bit into the spiritual side of how we recuperate from life. Okay, so all I've done here is just said no. Hurt, no. Lonely, yes. Okay, hurt is when somebody does something to you, right? And you're hurt and she's interpreting it incorrectly. So I hope you got something out of that. But again, we need more time and more depth for such important questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I know that our time is dwindling. I just want to get to one or two more here. Will you be going into spouse ADHD in this course, or like how much to accept?
Because it's definitely one of the reasons that there will be differences. There's a lot of reasons. Never mind the ADHD. We'll go into spouse everything, all the psychological reasons why there will be differences in all of the areas that are outlined in the course.
Okay, fantastic. Can this be applied to the way a husband expresses affection?
Absolutely. There's the 4 love languages, or is it the 5 love languages, or whatever the guy wrote the book. And we all, because of our genes and our upbringing, have different ways of communicating. So, if I, as the wife, need jewelry, and my spouse is the stingy one who doesn't like to spend more than 25 cents on anything, or doesn't believe in gifts, or wasn't raised with gifts, or doesn't value wasting money on trinkets, as he calls it, whatever, right? Yeah, Like, I don't feel loved unless I'm wearing that big diamond ring that everybody else is wearing, and all their husbands sacrifice to do that for them, and what's wrong with you? Like, yeah, there's everything. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. I do see some people also asking about the recording and wanting to share that. And is this recorded? So yes, with God's help, we will be able to get a recording out to you tomorrow before Shabbos. Otherwise, keep a lookout on Sunday, but we're going to try our best to do that for you. And please, of course, feel free to pass it along to anyone that you know that could gain from this amazing workshop, because I see people are asking to share it with their friends. Absolutely. So Sarahana, with just a few minutes left here, I'd love to turn it back over to you for us to, have some parting comments. We've still got so many people here on the line. If somebody is on the fence, still wondering if this is the right place for them, I'd love for you to just be able to kind of finish off today's workshop with some parting words.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll say this. In the follow-up workshop, we have a chance to explore so many questions in depth, okay? All the different things. Remember, halfway through here, I said, if we think of it in terms of what we're fighting about, and we've had other workshops here on marriage. I've done some on marriage. I've done some on how not to fight. But, if we could capture this thing here, getting on the same page means we're coming closer, okay? It's another way. We can talk about marriage till the cows come home or whatever, because it's hard. And marriage is one of the most important relationships that we have. Our children depend on us to figure out how to get this right so that they can grow up in solid homes. Because if you look around the world, see what's going on with today's children, most of whom have not grown up with their parents in a household. You can see, just look read the news or something, the world is falling apart. This is a lack of family. Every class we take, I don't care if it's repetitive, I don't care if you've heard it before, I don't care if you know it all already, we should stand together, all of us as a community, and keep studying marriage. I just feel it's the most important thing we can do for our children. And although we're talking specifically about issues that impact the children directly, we're also talking about just making our home a home and keeping the peace in the relationship. So not only do we have a home, but that our children don't grow up brain damaged from living with us, from all the fighting, from all the struggle, from all the differences. This is such an important issue. All of you who are left here need to sign up right now. I want to see you there. I want to do this with you, all of us together. That's my parting words. We've got to keep our world together.
Thank you so much. That was really, really well said. And what a way to end today's class. I really appreciate it. I do want to remind everyone, I'm going to go ahead and just leave the webinar open for a few more minutes. You won't hear us or see us anymore, but it'll give you the chance. If you have any questions or need help registering and you want to get in for our raffle, please just put your name and your telephone number right here into the chat box. Hannah and Sephora are both standing by to give you a call and help you register. And of course, if you're in and we've got just another minute, I'd love to be able to welcome you. So feel free to put your name or your initials in and I can welcome you right before we close out here. And then, of course, if you have any questions or you need help with figuring out payment plans, whatever the case may be, you can also always reach us at jewishworkshops@jewishworkshops.com. So feel free to send us an email if you still need some help outside of the webinar, like when we close up today. Thank you to everyone who joined us from all over the world. We know, obviously, that people are busy and you have so many things that you could be doing throughout the day, but we are so appreciative that you chose your time to be spent with us. And Sarahana, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for spending extra time with us today. I really think that we got to such an amazing place just through this, hour and 45 minutes or so. And I can't wait to hear the rest of this follow-up course and hope that as many of you can join us as well. So please, if you need help, just stick stuff into the chat box right now. And we're going to say goodbye. Thank you so much, Sarhana.
My pleasure. Hope to see you all there.
Yeah. Thank you.